Hi. If you've been listening to the news, you've been hearing a lot of controversy over public sector collective bargaining and the roles that the unions play in creating the current financial crises for the states. What most people don't understand is the role of collective bargaining. Unions used to play a much larger role in the private sector. They don't anymore. Many workers in many states can go through entire careers without ever encountering a union, so there's something of a strange phenomenon. On the other hand, increasingly for school teachers, policemen, firefighters, a lot of people in the public sector, unionism is a fact of everyday life. And it is the organism that permits them as a group to interact with the very powerful political sector in terms of setting wages and terms and conditions of employment. Now, in part because in the public sector, unionization is by necessity political, the unions end up having political preferences for Republicans or Democrats, and they end up having to have a certain amount of political clout or muscle. And this creates a problem because workers are compelled either to join the union in some states or to pay dues to the union in order to accomplish the collective bargaining, in order to engage in the process of setting terms and conditions of employment. But the union can use some of those funds for political activities, and those activities can be offensive to some of the workers because they don't agree with the unions. Now, what's collective bargaining supposed to do is it's supposed to permit workers who are individuals to band together as a group and, with the power of the group, be able to set the price and the terms and the conditions that they get from their employers. Now, some people would rather believe that they can sell their labor on their own, that they're good workers, and that they can max their price out by selling it on their own. But historically, many workers have felt that the best way to maximize wage for the group is to have the group bargain with the employer as a unit and then create what appears to be something of a civil service. It would put a stress on years of service. It would put a stress on on seniority. There are things that occur in a unionized environment. And in exchange for that, acting as a group, they will get the benefits that accrue from being a group. It's kind of difficult for many Americans today to understand what labor practices were like 100 years ago or 110 years ago that gave rise to the union movement. And so it's difficult for people to relate. People instead now see the unions in many cases as a source of bureaucracy or a source of political power or a source of these other things. And they also may see some of the public sector workers who have jobs when they don't as overprivileged or abusive. And surely there's something disturbing about seeing people who should be at work not being at work, as in Wisconsin with the teachers and some of the dishonesty that's going on up there. But it hasn't, we've been lucky, and we haven't seen many real labor management disputes break out in the environment recently. But at the same time, it means that we're lacking a sense of history of how labor and management engage in conflict and what's supposed to be happening in the workplace. What really happens with the national labor policy and in the state labor policies is in the private sector, the workers are really given a seat in making some of the decisions about how the company is run, at least as to how they're run in terms of labor matters. What happens in the public sector is that through a use of a certain kind of political power, the union gains a special place in setting education policy or setting policies that concern the police, the fire, and the other people who are involved in the system. This is supposed to be a democratic process with workers becoming a part of either the political process or the labor management process. And by channeling it through unions, it's supposed to be less disruptive than what would happen if there were no unions present, or less abusive if there wasn't this formalized method of dealing with the employer. But we seem to arrive at a point where we're so separated from the history in which unions came up that we're no longer capable of relating to them, and where unions have become so structured and so political that they've become so much a part of the external political process that many citizens and even many workers find it difficult to identify with them, or difficult to understand the lives of people like police, fire, a lot of these public sector workers who identify with their unions because they have no sense of being able to deal individually with the school board or the police commissioner or these powerful political institutions that control their government. And it's difficult to know if in this current turmoil there will be any opportunity to increase our knowledge and sensitivity to what workers are attempting to achieve.